Curious, was it upon your recommendation that when we received the ruling from the federal court that we decided not to enforce it against vendors?
No.
It wasn't?
No.
Well, where did that, when we got the night, we were in a commission meeting when we got the ruling from the federal court that said it's unconstitutional as to these 4 protected artists. And when we discussed it, we only discussed it for a few minutes. I left here thinking those 4 artists can be in the plaza, but we even talked about, okay, no vendors, right? No Coke, no beverages. And I understood they weren't going to be here. And then a week later, free-for-all in the plaza, and I thought that was upon your recommendation. So I'm confused.
When I made my report to you concerning the Bates versus City of St. Augustine case, since that time, the judge has ruled. And we just pulled off of the PACER from the United States District Court for the Middle District an order. And let me tell you that the basic is that the judge has entered an injunction against the enforcement of 22.6 as to visual artists, photographers, printers, sculptors, and painters. So each of these artists that are named as plaintiffs in here are basically one of those 4. The city is preliminary enjoined from enforcing or threatening to enforce City of St. Augustine Code Section 22.6 as amended by Ordinance Number 2007-23 against visual artists. I now have an order which states that visual artist and the visual artist described, or one of each of the 4 horsemen, shall be in there. And tomorrow morning and this weekend, at a minimum, painters, photographers, printers, and sculptors can set up somewhere in the plaza, or for that matter, anywhere else in the city. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just want to make sure that I understand this. If we do nothing, if we don't pass an ordinance in the next couple of months, am I correct in understanding what you said, that these 4 artists can sell their products in the park? However, I can't go set up a soda stand. Is that how this is being interpreted?
Yes, ma'am. And I'll tell you why I think that's the case. She says against visual artists.
I've read that.
We have a caricature artist, we have a sculptor, we have a painter, and we have a photographer. Now, a very limited reading of this is that that's the only definition of visual artist we have in this order, and that's all that gets to go there. Because this court is now saying visual arts are out there. Now, I will say this. I think probably that does prohibit the sunglass salesman. Okay. I think it prohibits
seated chair massage.
A lot of the flea market activity, which in December of 2006, caused the shutdown to start with, and the revision of the ordinance, and the type of activity that's out there. So as I read it at this point, without passing a further ordinance, you're probably looking at those 4 things: painting, sculpture, photography, and printing. If we can try to stay in some kind of definition of what that is, which I will tell you is a big improvement over what we had.
I think so.
Because now I got a court telling me visual artist only.
What's more concerned to me, I mean, I'm not too concerned, and I don't know about my fellow commissioners, I'm not too worried about artists, sculptors, painters, the 4 being there, as long as it does keep out the sunglass salesman and the jewelry salesman and everything else. If we can, that's the reason we had the all or nothing vote. I mean, it was not because we really wanted the artist out of there, but we wanted the other commercial vendors that were importing stuff from Taiwan. That's what the people we didn't want down there, because it was becoming.
I want to see artists in the park. I think that they're an important part of the city. So I think at a minimum, if you've given us, or you've given me, a sense of protection from the commercial sales of other goods, but I think we should give it an opportunity to work, and let's readdress it when we meet again.
It seems to me that this latest round has kind of brought us back full circle.
That's exactly right. The interesting thing is the commission's philosophical wishes, obviously a prior commission, was that the artists be allowed and that the sunglass salesman be disallowed.
This supersedes the previous order?
The judges,
this order from this judge.
It would seem to
supersedes
override the local judge's order.
Let's put it this way. I've got now an order which gives us a legal basis to argue that it does. Here's why you get in trouble in constitutional law. If you knowingly violate somebody's constitutional rights, problems arise. Now I have an order that says, all right, 22.6 is invalid as to visual artist. So if y'all want to leave it alone, then what will happen is that we'll probably let painters and sculptors and caricature artists and photographers and people who sell prints of paintings as well as original hang out in the plaza. And you know, I think we've at least got an order that says that we can do that. And this may turn out, you know, it's an adverse in a sense, but it may turn out to be something that solves a problem we were trying to get around.
First of all, the question about why we do not enforce the law is the wrong question, because the city didn't allow a free market. The city manager created a flea market. And they did the same thing in '95 when they said there was a circus on St. George Street. They told Judge Watson there's a circus on St. George Street. There were 6 musicians that were there in a 7-day period. And then that wasn't crazy enough. They tried a new ordinance, and there was not enough anger. So then they allowed the vendors to come out. And then they stopped enforcing ordinances like you can't block a sidewalk. And then they allowed the vendors on St. George Street to post signs. The aim was to create angry merchants so they would come out here and present the effect of a crisis. It's a contrived crisis. As long as you try and regulate protected expression as commerce, you're doomed to stay caught in this loop, and you're going to have a city manager contriving new crises to try and explain why it's such a problem. I didn't hear one complaint about the artists. It's all about the vendors and the retailers.
I'd like to throw it down a major policy shift, propose a major policy shift. we had quite a discussion this morning about this. Currently, our position, to sum it up, is a hands-off position on these transient vendors. There's really only 4 protected classes, but right now, if somebody wants to go get a permit in the slave market or set up in this location to sell a non-protected item, let's say jewelry is non-protected, sell jewelry, our current policy is a hands-off, non-enforcement position about that. I propose, and that was derived from the commission, might have even been the previous commission. Really, who cares? The long and short is that's how we are operating.